Right.
And the director said to him, I quit. He said, if you're going to do that, there's no point.
And he quit.
And he quit. And it's the only time I have ever in my life seen a general president of the Teamsters call someone and ask them not to quit.
Intervene. Oh, and he asked them not to quit.
And apologized and said, you can go. So, I mean,
credit to the department, and also to, and a lot of
integrity.
And a lot of times the IBT staff gets lost in all this. Mm-hmm. But the level of professionalism and dedication of the members, and not necessarily just elected leaders, is amazing.
Well, and it's really hard to take a stand when you are at the mercy of a general president of a union.
Right.
We are in a union.
It's always do as I say, not as I do.
Right, right. And the Teamsters building is now unionized. Okay, those all of the people that work there are in the union, but it's still it's a
mom and pop.
Well, I call it a schizophrenic personality, because we're union and we believe 100% union, but sometimes the officers of locals and joint councils and the international headquarters have learned their management style from the worst managers in the country.
You? I know. It's so true. Right.
And so we had to be organized. I mean, same reason any other worker is organized. But anyway, one of the other things we had as a principal in our department, because our department, and I'm so proud of these things.
Well, and you got to bring in the development piece too.
Oh, yeah. But the thing I'm so proud of is our department was the first department in the international that had professional women. It was the first department that had professional African Americans. It's also been the first department that hired diversity. It's one of the most diverse departments in the international headquarters. And we had officers that would call our department and ask for training. And if we assigned this, I'm going way back now.
Right.
But if we assigned
we're talking about like the late 70s, early 80s. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If we assigned a black.
Oh, don't send the black guy or something.
No,
right.
We got that. And you know what we said? We said, well, then you're not going to get a program from us.
God, that's fucking good for you guys.
I know.
Which is not, I can't imagine the pressure.
No. It was hard.
Coming down on people,
It was hard. But we took that stand because if they could do it to one person, it's the same with the labor movement.
Right.
If they could do it to one person, they could do
God
it to
bless you guys,
everybody.
man.
So we stood by that, and we have to this very day. Now, the change in our name came when Mr. Hoffa came in.
Yeah.
Because I personally got very interested in strategic planning. And I got interested in leadership development and organizational development.
Boy, we could do more of that too.
Yeah, and we need to do more of that.
Yeah.
Because the labor movement has always been like a fireman. There's a crisis and we run in and put out the fire.
Right.
We don't sit back and plan.
Well, in the I don't want to call them adversaries because I'm a Gompers kind of guy. But our contemporaries in the, working for these companies and these law firms, it's gotten highly skilled.
Right. And they do it. They go on retreats and they plan.
Oh, they train like crazy.
And they meet and they plan and they
scheme.
Phil again. I just want to let you know I left that phone ringtone in because that's her ringtone for her phone, which I thought was like really cool. So anyway, back to the interview.
Okay, we're back.
Okay, so what happened is, like you said, our employers do strategic planning and training and all that kind of thing. And I learned the reason I became so interested in it is
I'm on Littler's mailing list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to be
because they give me updates on what's going on in labor law.
Yeah, you have to. But I went to American University and got my master's, and I was the only union person in the program. It was a human resource development training. It was organizational development. All the people in there were HR people.
I know. I almost got my SHRM certificate.
Yeah. So I was around all these HR people and I saw that they are planning. They know where they want to go with their workforce and they're making plans. So anyway, I went to, at the time, Jackie Presser, But this was before Mr. Hoffa, and I
Right.
put the idea to him, and he wasn't like, I don't know, no. He did use some of the training that I got from American University when the freight industry, when Jimmy Carter deregulated the freight industry. Jackie and all the big freight companies came together and tried to do a strategic plan. But it was hopeless, I think, based on the deregulation.
Right. And then you've got containerization coming in too at the same time, which is
And the same thing happened with the airline industry. I mean, both of them. But anyway, so when Mr. Hoffa came in, I went to him and I said, look, you've got all these divisions in the Teamsters. Each one of these divisions needs to do a strategic plan. It came literally
wow.
from Steve Varma.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Steve. He was in the warehouse division, and he said, Sally, they're going to eat our lunch. And he said, we need to get together and start doing planning. And I said, you're 100% right. And so that's when I went to Mr. Hoffa, and I said, we got to start doing this. And he said, well, if the officers want to do it, do it. So I approached them.
So you snookered at another general president.
I think it is that they don't want to do it, and I'm willing to do it. So it's like, oh, let her go do it.
Right.
But
Well, and honestly, confidence and trust has a lot to do with it.
well,
too.
yeah. And the one thing I think, Mr. Hoffa in particular, I have told my classes this over and over again. I'm lucky because he does trust me. He knows I'm not going to just not do my job.
Right.
And he's not worried. He sat through many of my classes. And I remember in Detroit one time before he became the general president,
Oh, wow.
he sat through a sexual harassment class that I was doing.
Oh, my God. Talk about bringing fire to the...
Well, and I had, what's his name, Stone, that character from Texas was in my class, and he sat in a chair and he propped his feet up on the table like this, and he said, oh, I came in here to learn how to sexually harass. And so I said, well, we can all learn. That's a good thing. We can all learn. And that's when Mr. Hoffa stood up and he said, this is one of the most important topics that we need to be learning about right now.
In Detroit.
In Detroit, back in front of that guy.
Good for him.
Yeah. I mean, things like
Wow.
that. I think our officers need, and I know Rome at 853 knows this, but they have to stick up. They have to stick up for people because as a teacher, I'm up there, I'm telling people what I think. But if the
Right.
officer is not backing me and if the leadership of the local, the members pick up on it immediately.
And I sound a little cynical about, sometimes people are kind of back in the Stone Age or whatever. But for every one person that I've found to be a little backwards, there's always been 2 or 3 in the organization that are really, really, I mean, some of the most progressive, thoughtful, aggressive people in the labor movement I've met, have come from the Teamsters.
Exactly. You have both.
But we got our words too, like you said,
We definitely have both. But
It's like where whoever's listening works.
Right.
Right. You got great people and then you got that guy.
And usually the organization has a way of dealing, with that. They grow. It maybe slows us down, but I think we continue to move forward. I know I've had officers over the years come up to me privately, during trainings, and they'll say, God, Sally, I agree with you 100%, but we're not going to be able to do this. It's just not. For example, one of the things I've really pushed a lot in my training is internal organizing of our members.
Right.
To get members to, when you go in and organize a place brand new and you win, the members are happy and excited and they're so proud to be in the labor movement and in the Teamsters.
And you're halfway there.
Yeah. And then as time goes by, we move from that organizer to that lawyer.
Right.
We become their attorney. And that's all they want. They just want you to represent them if they screw up.
Yep.
And the rest of the members are looking at it like, why am I here? And so what I try to do in my classes is I try to talk about how important it is for every single steward, business agent, officer has to constantly be an organizer. They have to organize. They have to organize those dues-paying members.
Right.
They have to make sure those folks understand their essential quality that they bring to their union. The fact that they sit home and let somebody else control their contract and,
I know.
and all of that, it's weak.
What I've always told members is their best representative is always going to be themselves, and they can only do that if they're involved and if they're there.
And they have to voice their opinions, because we're the weakness. And you asked this question at the very beginning of why is it that the labor movement doesn't get why we need to stick together.
Right.
The weakness, and Karl Marx pointed this out in his writings, the weakness of the American labor movement is that we have no common bond. We're all going in separate directions. And you must have great leaders figure out how to have a common bond. You look at Biden, for example. Common bond is infrastructure. Perfect.
Oh, man.
Perfect. Who doesn't?
Preschool. Who doesn't want I'm back on preschool.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want preschool and better roads and bridges and
And this collapse in Florida. I mean, that just points out how bad our infrastructure is.
Right.
And so,
unbelievable.
So good leaders have to have the ability to understand what's going to pull this group of people together. I have to message something that is going to pull all of these folks in the same direction. And some people are good at it, and some people aren't.
God bless Joe, man.
I know.
He is really.
I know.
And you know what? I've got both fingers crossed on Manchin too. I think he's playing a long game.
Yeah.
He's going to come around.
You think?
I do.
Okay.
God, I hope so. I think he's got a plan.
Well, you're optimistic. That's for sure. But back to development. So that's where the strategic planning and the organizational development and the leadership. I'm doing a leadership TLA in, I think it's December at Local 769. And it's always such a challenge.
Oh, that's Texas, right?
No, that's Florida.
Florida. I'm thinking of 745.
Yeah.
Right. So freight local. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm always excited when I get to do these different kinds of programs, because I start thinking what's going to challenge these officers.
So you've come up with a lot of these programs.
Right.
From scratch.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the fun part, because that's the creative part.
Right.
You have to really be creative. And
I mean, you developed the curriculum, so
kinda, yeah.
It's amazing.
But here's the thing that's difficult is that every lawyer I've ever met in my life thinks they can teach. Okay,
No comment.
Every single professional, quote unquote, that I've ever met thinks they can teach, and I know in my heart that some of them are very, very good. And some of them are horrible.
Right.
And I think they don't understand the basic principles of adult learning. Adults, children, unfortunately, are at your mercy. They come to school and they have to come to school.
Right.
And they have to sit there. But adults come because they want to learn something. And so you really have to respect the fact that they're giving up their time. They probably have a lot of skill and talent themselves. So the fact that they're coming to a class, you're like, this better be something that they want to learn.
You sound like an NBA coach right now. You know what I mean? Like a college coach. You
have to be.
But once they're all, autonomous grown individuals, you got to appeal to,
You do. And you have to find out. You can't just walk in and go, blah, 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 and expect. They can hear it. They'll hear it.
Right.
What's troubling for me is I sit and watch classes a lot. Like I'll watch different topics being taught.
By the way, the blah, 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 that's every employer safety training meeting you just covered right there. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like the old Charlie Brown parents, the wah, 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 wah.
Well, there's a famous South American educator.
God, you could have made millions training on the employer side.
Yeah, but I couldn't have done it.
But you got character
I
instead.
couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
I know.
I would just, that would never work for me. But there's a famous educator in South America, Pablo Fiera. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
I haven't, but tell me about Pablo.
Okay, so his theory of education is that when you have a group of workers in a classroom, that you really shouldn't be teaching